Hi there, fam. This is going to be a very serious PSA for our lovely sisters out there. And I understand that it may go on deaf ears, but what they can't say is that nobody told them, that nobody cared enough to tell them. And again, I do understand the resistance. In my content, I've been highly critical of a certain demographic of American black women, the toxic, modern, pro-feminist ones. The ones who consistently say that they're strong, independent, and don't need men, while simultaneously proving that to all be a lie, that no, they're not independent, but highly dependent. They're not very strong, but actually critically weak. And last but not least, they need black men more than they will ever truly humble themselves enough to directly admit. Which is why that demographic, more than any other woman on the face of the planet, complain about a lack of provision and protection. And to that effect, many of them claim that they can protect themselves by simply brandishing a weapon. And I know that time and time again, we black men try to raise awareness for these women that having a weapon still is not having the great equalizer that they think that it is. It's not. There's still a fundamental difference between men and women, especially when it comes to size, strength, dexterity, speed, you name it. Our physicality is just different. It needs to be respected, it needs to be acknowledged, and the women need to act accordingly, because when they don't, they put themselves in a lot of harm's way. They subject themselves to a number of possible outcomes that may not always be favorable. To express this point or to bring it home, I'm going to show you a video. Viewer discretion is advised, and we're going to walk through it because I want to make it painstakingly clear that many of these women who call themselves brandishing a weapon, they don't always realize the consequences that might come from it, especially when they're misusing the weapon. So first and foremost, let me express this. A firearm is meant for personal protection or the protection of others. It is not a toy, and it is certainly never to be used as an instrument of intimidation. And unfortunately, it's that last part that so many modern American black women have as a bad habit. They try to use the weapon as a means of intimidation, as opposed to a machine used for self-preservation, for self-defense. So without further ado, here's the video.
I don't play with a motherfucking man. A man is not gonna pay me. You gonna pay with me big. You gonna pay with me big.
£200 off for a family of 4.
You gonna pay with me big. You gonna pay me big now. Now, cause one thing about it, I don't play with no mother.
With 22 kilograms of baggage included. But now, with Jet2 Holidays. With holidays you can trust. After protected.
Tell police be here.
So let's just jump into it. There are so many different ways where this entire video could have gone to the left. What we saw was actually the best case scenario. So what we have is this black woman getting into it with what looks like at least 2 different individuals. And what does she do? She brandishes her weapon. Now, I don't know if this woman is in a stand your ground state or not, But from the moment she pulled that weapon out, if they were in a stand your ground state, either one of those individuals, especially the one who engaged her, would have been in his right to brandish a weapon of his own and take her life. Think about that for a second. Every human being has the right to protect themselves, especially from a threat against their own lives. When it comes to the camera person, again, had this woman pulled her weapon out and the camera person had a weapon of their own, that camera person would have been well within their right to brandish their own weapon and take her life, if only just to protect the other individual. I'll give you an example. Here in Louisiana, where I live, a definite stand your ground state. Under LRS 1420, I guess subsection 20, part 1 talks about justifiable homicide in the name of protecting oneself, and part 2, the second part, talks about homicide being justifiable in defense of another person. So if that woman were here and say, for instance, she drew down on me, yeah, she might be a memory. If she had drawn down on one of my friends, family, co-workers, yeah, she might be a memory. Just to give you an example. Then we have to look at the individual she engaged. She lucked up by engaging an individual who just wanted to disarm her. He could very well have overpowered her, taken her weapon, and if he was a hateful individual, if he was a racist individual, for example, because let's not deny it, this was a non-black person that she was engaging with, he very well could have overpowered her, taken a weapon, and put a few hot ones in her. And we know that the weapon was loaded because mid-scuffle, she lets off a round. Now, here's another scenario. What if she had gotten in a scuffle with this individual, and instead of letting off a round at the ground, maybe she wound up letting a round off at a nearby person, or maybe into a crowd of people. Now she would be possibly responsible for having taken the life of some uninvolved person. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the most straightforward and obvious. What if she did successfully take the life of this man just because she's upset, just because she's angry, an unarmed man? Now she would be facing a prison sentence, which undoubtedly she would serve, because we don't necessarily live in a technologically advanced age like something you would have seen off of that old Jetsons cartoon, but we certainly live in an age of street cameras and facial recognition and license plate analysis. Before this woman might have even had her dinner, the police could have shown up right at her front doorstep. And then who would suffer? Of course, she would suffer having to fulfill that sentence. But look at all the other lives that would be disrupted in the mix. Her possible children, her family, her friends, pretty much anybody who ever cared about her, their lives would be turned upside down. And again, what if the worst possible scenario were to present itself? What if she had become injured with some type of debilitating injury? Or what if she actually lost her life? And all for what? Because she wants to be Bonnie Badass with a weapon. She wants to be intimidating. Ladies, this is not the route for you to go. Ladies, I beg you, I implore you, Be better. Do better. Because many of you, whether you realize it or not, you set yourselves up for failure. You set yourselves up to potentially lose your lives, get debilitated for the rest of your lives, injure or take the life of another individual, and all for what? Because you were temporarily mad, you were temporarily offended, your feelings were hurt, you felt disrespected. You will take one moment of vengeance or pettiness, and let that destroy your very lives, the lives of your family, of your friends. Ladies, please do better, be better, live better. And stop thinking that just having a weapon is the answer to all of this conflict or any situation that you're in. It's not. There are consequences that you may not very well be ready to deal with. Good luck and Godspeed.